Salutations! Welcome to this episode of the Unbroken Net. Today we're going to be talking about James chapter 1, verses 9 through 11. Matt, can you start us off with that, please?
Yep. Let the lowly brother boast in his exaltation, and the rich in his humiliation. Because like a flower of the grass he will pass away. For the sun rises with its scorching heat, and withers the grass. Its flower falls, and its beauty perishes. So also will a rich man fade away in the midst of his pursuits.
So it's only 3 verses here, but it seems like there's a lot packed into
this.
This.
It does seem like that.
I mean, this is kind of... didn't you mention that they say that this is like the Proverbs? James is like the Proverbs of the New Testament?
James is like the Proverbs of the New Testament. Yeah.
Yeah, this definitely reads like a proverb, I'd say. But let's see. So he says, let's just unpack that first verse. Let the lowly brother boast in his exaltation. So let's just take that. Who's the lowly brother?
So it could mean a couple of things. It could mean the financially lowly, the poor, which would reflect what Jesus said, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. It could also refer to those who are humble, those who are not of high estate within the society.
Right.
You know, the outcast.
Yeah, which James goes on further in the passage. He kind of contrasts that with rich, and then those who are, he says rich in his humiliation. So kind of it brings both characters that you just mentioned.
Yeah. So then we got to talk about what's this exaltation? Like, how are the outcasts exalted? And I have my own experiences with being an outsider. Ever since I was in elementary school, I was always the mama's boy, the kid who got picked on. So what is the exaltation in a situation like that where everyone's picking on you? And I think it has to go back to your intrinsic nature of who you are. Knowing just how great it is just to be human. Like what are some of the great things about being human? What would you say?
I think that we get to experience love and love towards each other and love towards ourselves.
Which, in essence, is experiencing God in us.
Yeah.
And I think, like, when we think about it from a spiritual perspective, we are all the sons and daughters of God. And that alone is a reason for exaltation. Just knowing, you're a child of the Creator, and you are made to be just like the Creator in every way. And that's a pretty exciting and exalted position to have in life. Instead of thinking yourself, and it's easy when you're the outcast to think of yourself as the nobody, because that's what everything around you is telling you, that you're a nobody, you're not worth anything. And that's just not true. It's not true at all.
So who's actually exalting this lowly brother? Is it his brothers around him are exalting him?
Well, I think, you have that opportunity for friends and family to point out your qualities, but it says in his exaltation.
Yeah.
And I think we have to recognize it within ourselves before it really comes into play. I think it comes naturally to us as children. We are ourselves until we start getting reprimanded or punished for being ourselves, because we're trying to figure out how it all works. And I don't know. I think it has a lot to do with both of those. Society can knock us down, but but we need to get back up.
Yeah, I'm wondering. I mean, it seems that if you contrast this with verse 10, which we're going to get to, it's almost an equalization of two different castes.
Yeah.
Like the lowly being exalted and the rich being humiliated. Because it says, and the rich, where was it? Oh, yeah, and the rich in his humiliation.
Yeah. And it really is. It's an equaling of the playing field. We read in different scriptures that, there's no Jew or Gentile, Greek or barbarian or Scythian or slave or free. And in another passage even says there's no male or female, that we're all one. And that was Jesus's prayer, right? That we would be one even as he and the Father are one. And that would be equality with one another. And not just an equity building where we lift up the ones who are low and we push down the ones who are high, but intrinsically finding that equality where we're all equal in our value, not necessarily equal in our production, right? Because we're all at a different place. We all have a different understanding, and we all have the opportunity and the choice to bring good into the world. Mm-hmm. And how we act upon that is an individual decision.
Right. So it's if I'm reading this correctly, he's saying that the lowly should boast in this exaltation, and the rich should boast in his humiliation.
Mm-hmm. Because all the desires of the world, right? The desires of the flesh, the pride of life, and the desires of the eyes, they don't actually change our value. Mm-hmm. The poor, they don't have all the money. Oftentimes they're unkept. They don't have the nice clean clothes. They don't have the nice place to live. They look at it from a worldly perspective, and I shouldn't say we as a society look at that from a worldly perspective and say, oh, you're of humble estate. Jesus was born in a feed trough in a cave. Mm-hmm. This is a humble beginning. Instead of a prince being born in a palace, in a nice luxurious bed.
Yeah.
And so there doesn't seem to be an equality in our arrival sometimes, or in our living situation. But we have to look beyond the world into the spiritual state. And we all arrive from the same place. We will all return to the same place. The only time that we're different is now. Mm-hmm. And it's because we all have different lessons to learn and different values to add to this experience.
It is. I find it interesting that. So he kind of tells how the rich will be humiliated, or how the rich will. Well, he says, like a flower of the grass, he will pass away, and he's talking about the rich. I find it interesting. He mentions kind of how the rich will come to pass away, or he mentions of the grass, like the grass will pass away, because for the sun rises with its scorching heat and withers the grass. He doesn't say anything about the lowly brother. He it's almost like that's kind of just a given.
Yeah, I mean it's the same thing either way, right? We're all going to experience this. We all start off as a tender shoot. We grow up. We produce fruit, which is where our flowers come in. Mm-hmm. And then as we get older, we begin to deteriorate, and at some point we dry out and die. And the same end is for both of us, right? what's the difference? The difference is in the things that you get to have and experience during that time of life, And so when the rich man has this exaltation with all these things, with all these benefits, with all these opportunities that he has access to, he can boast in those things, but that is not his intrinsic value. That's just his experience. His intrinsic value is the same as the poor man. And so the world says he's exalted, but he has to humble himself from that state to make himself equal with the poor people, who the world says are really low, and they need to be exalted to that plane of equality, where we're all middle class, we're all in the middle, we're all the same, and it goes to I think a spiritual mind that can look beyond the physical things of the world.
Yeah, I would say that's true. It kind of makes me think maybe James is getting at something where the rich have he says the rich will fade away in the midst of his pursuits. And I'm thinking, what are those pursuits? And pursuits are to gain more wealth. And it's always about gaining more. Like, was it Rockefeller that said that he was asked how much money is enough? He said, just a little more. It's always just a little more. So you never get what you're striving for. You're always trying to get more. Maybe what the lowly understands that the rich doesn't is that it's really about the people. It's easier to see when your riches are not of this world and they're of the people that we communicate with and the love that we show and share with each other. That's what really is important. And it's hard that the riches of the world, they get in the way of us seeing that.
Yeah.
Because I think that, what passes away? The riches of this world, even our bodies in this world, they will pass away. But if our treasure is actually in each other, and we love each other, and the people around us are what important, and we're not willing to step on anybody just to get the riches of this world, then we're kind of building our riches in heaven, I would say.
It brings, especially that statement about just a little bit more, it brings me back to what is eternal life. And we discussed this many episodes ago. Eternal life is contentment with what is. And the lowly brother can boast in his exaltation when he's content because he has nothing more to gain. And the rich man can boast in his humiliation when he is content because he has nothing more to gain. There's nothing more to gain in this life than what I already have. And with what I already have, I'm going to be content. I'm going to be satisfied. I'm going to be fulfilled. And sometimes you mentioned the people and the relationships. And it's easy to lose relationships because you don't have enough, and it's easy to lose relationships because you have too much.
Or not willing to part from those riches.
Or you make those riches more valuable than the relationships.
Right.
Or the lack of things. You make this, if you don't have enough, you're going to strive to get more. And if you make that striving more valuable than the things you already have, that is the people you already have, you lose something there.
Yeah. When your riches become more important than the people that are around you.
Yeah. when the true riches in this world are the people. You know,
Yeah.
For it is Christ in you, the hope of glory. And where do we find Christ in you? It's when you're looking into another set of eyes. That's where you find Christ.
Mm-hmm.
You know, obviously Christ is within yourself, and you have that intimate spiritual relationship. But it has to go beyond that, to the point where we can look into another person's eyes and find Christ.
Yeah. Right. I mean, he's found in the lowest. Like, if we help a brother that's in need, that's when we are actually putting our riches into heaven.
Mm.
And I would say that's because, and a lot of, I shouldn't say a lot of people, I always thought when growing up, it's like, oh, we just need to give away our money to other people so that it will go into heaven someday. But I think it's more of like, if you're actually helping a brother, then you're actually investing in somebody else.
Yeah.
And that somebody else, you can see the kingdom of God. You know, when you're giving, that's you're seeing, you're building the kingdom.
And really, where is heaven? Is heaven someplace in the future, or is heaven right now? And where is hell? Is hell someplace in the future, or is hell right now?
Yeah, I think it's both.
Yeah. I'm in a place where I don't know. Mm-hmm. I don't know what's next. I haven't been there. I haven't experienced it. But I know that heaven can be right now, and I know that hell can be right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so rather than focusing on what's next, I choose to focus on what's now and find that life right now.
Well, all we know is right now.
Mm-hmm. That's all we have.
I mean, personally, I believe that what's next is just it's kind of like a reflection of what we have now.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe even it's we see more clearly, a mirror more clearly.
Yeah.
Which makes me think, like, when that day comes, will we reflect on who we were, and we can see who we were throughout life more clearly, and see where we were just storing up our riches, and what kind of loss would we feel if, it's like we built all this up and now it's just going to be gone. But if we look back and reflect on all the good we did, how we helped and built those relationships with other people and gave to those who needed, and I don't really know where I'm going with that, but
yeah.
But a kind of a reflection of, I think a lot of what we do in this life will be reflected in the next life. Not whether I don't know if it'd be a judgment. I don't think it'd be a judgment from God, really, but maybe a judgment of ourselves.
Perhaps. I think we'll find out then. But when we get to then, it'll be right now.
Yeah.
It'll always be right now, and like we have that time of reflection right now. In order to reflect, you have to be in the present. In order to project, you have to be in the present. No matter what, we find ourselves in this moment. And that's all we really have. And we come up with this illusion of time, and it makes sense with the way life goes from birth to death. But we can't grasp any other moment than what we have right now. Mm-hmm. We can dream about it or we can reflect on it, but we can only experience what we're in right now. Even as we reflect upon the past, we're experiencing it again right now.
Right. It's just we experience it as nostalgia, or maybe not nostalgia, but however we experience thinking of our past. But we're experiencing in the present is what you're saying.
And maybe, okay, let's go back to the boasting about our exaltation or boasting about our humiliation. Maybe that has to do with thinking about where we're going to be. Like the poor man can say, well, one day, as tradition would say, I'll be in heaven and I'll have all my needs met, even though I don't have them met right now. And perhaps the rich man can boast about the fact that, one day in heaven, I'm not going to have all this extra stuff. I'm just going to have what I need. I don't know. Just a thought. Thinking about future states, or even in this life. One day my body will be dead and I'll no longer need any of the stuff I have. And the poor brother saying, one day I'll be dead and I'll no longer want for what I don't have. We're all going to end in the same place. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust.
Yeah, I think we'll understand a lot more when that day comes. But I think it's important that we just invest in each other.
Right now,
yeah. Because, I mean, what good will our riches do for us once we're gone?
You can't take it with you.
I don't know what it means for the next life or whatever's after this. But I know that we have that example that Jesus gave us, that we should just love each other, invest in each other, and invest in the kingdom, which is those around us, whoever that might be, and whoever's in need, and we can help them out. And we shouldn't be trying to invest in. I mean, I don't know. We shouldn't try to step over people just to get the riches of this world.
Of course not.
Yeah.
Of course not. That's a sure means of destruction.
Yeah. And I wonder if back then that's kind of how the rich got their riches, is by, even today I think a lot of times people can get their riches from just stepping on the people that beneath them to get to that point. But not always.
Not always.
I think it's just important to just where your treasure lies. Is it in money, or is it in the people around us? And seeing God and the people around us, just loving God with all our hearts.
Even in the breath, like if you find your value in the breath, I still have breath. I still have oxygen in my lungs. Like, that's a good place to find value.
Just be content in the present.
Content in the present. Yep.
I think my grandmother always said, and my grandfather, somebody asked them how they're doing. I'm up and taking nourishment.
Upright and taking nourishment.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's all we have sometimes.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's all the time we have for today. But if you did like what we were talking about today, if you did get something out of it, I just encourage you to go ahead and give us a like on YouTube or Spotify, wherever you're listening to us. And if you want to hear more of what we have to offer, more of what we are saying, then go ahead and subscribe. And we will catch you next week. Take care.
Bye now.